It's almost hockey season, folks, and the Seattle Kraken have released their training camp roster, which will begin with their rookie camp on September 11th.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Seattle hockey fans, welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're bringing your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. Erica L. Ayala here. And yes, we will be everydayers. Starting on Monday, we are back to 5 days a week. And Joe Dabney, who was on the show yesterday, and I have some really fun content planned for you. We are going to go back to the inaugural roster, just like we did Where Are They Now for the expansion draft picks. We want to do that also for the inaugural roster. Again, I didn't even introduce myself. I'm so excited about what we have coming down the pike. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken, also an accredited media member for Milano Cortina, where I will be covering the women's and men's ice hockey tournaments, which we know will include Philip Grubauer, but who else might be going who represents the Kraken, either past, present, or future. We'll talk all about that as we get closer to the Olympics. So the Seattle Kraken the other day released their rookie camp roster, and we're going to talk about the rookie camp roster, also the whole training camp roster, but wanted to focus on the rookie class because a lot of us, if we go by who is commenting on YouTube in particular, we really are anxious to see if the Seattle Kraken are going to lean into the youth movement. And so knowing who the rookies are and who's going to be showcased at rookie camp and the rookie exhibition, that's going to be important. So here we go. We have the rookie camp roster for the Seattle Kraken here listed. Of course, we know Berkeley Catton was going to be there. Furcus, Oscar Fisker Molgard, someone who we might see represent his team at the international stage, has already. David Goyette, Justin Janicki, Jacob Melanson. I want to go down to Robert Tucker, or Tucker Robertson, excuse me. We do know that he was a part of the trade that we mentioned on yesterday's podcast. So this is not the updated. I had already uploaded this. We knew we were going to talk about rookie camps on Friday. Edward Shala is, I think, an interesting player that I'm going to keep an eye on. I feel like the results have been a mixed bag when it comes to Edward Shala. So we'll see what he can bring. Ryan Winterton is another player, I think, who's going to be really, really interesting, and perhaps someone that I honestly haven't talked about enough when it comes to some young blood potentially making this roster. Yanni Newman is another player. Carson Reinkamp, Jake O'Brien, of course, was our first round pick this past draft. You can see all of the different draft or how the players were acquired. But the fisherman himself, then if you look at the blue line, I think really looking at Ty Nelson, Ottavainen, those are the two, maybe Price to an extent. I think these are the guys that we're looking for, but I think it's more of a opportunity on the front end than when we come to defenders. And I don't think we're expecting to see Coco or Osman, with any significant time in the NHL. You never know, things happen, injuries happen, but we'll see. But this is going to be an interesting camp from the forward perspective. I think a few players, David Goyette, I think is somebody interesting here. Nathan Villeneuve as well. How many of these players, if any of them, are going to have a real chance when it comes to making this Seattle Kraken roster? And that's really the question here. Because it doesn't seem like this is a Seattle Kraken team. Not a lot of people have faith that this is going to be a Kraken team that is going to be a playoff team. Now, will they be better than last year? And we've talked about this on previous episodes. I think there's a world in which the Seattle Kraken actually do make some gains, whether that's on special teams. Good grief, please be better on back-to-back games, net front presence. Those are just some of the things we know the organization wants to focus on. But the NHL is going to be different as well. And I think that there are times where you really want to focus internal and you want to be able to be better than what you were. That's a little bit of a low bar. I think the Seattle Kraken need to start leveling up comparative to their competition. And I think that there are ways to do that where you don't get so enthralled with what other people are doing that you kind of lose what you're supposed to be doing, but there has to be a balance. And we haven't struck that balance. The Seattle Kraken have not been able to strike that balance in 4 seasons. So going into season 5, will this be the year? I don't know. A lot of people, though, do think that if it's going to happen, it has to be because the Seattle Kraken are because the Seattle Kraken are getting some of their young players involved. Now, you didn't see anyone on that roster that was on the team full time last year, but we do have that. We'll talk about that coming up. But I just want to get into what to expect to the first few days, which are considered the rookie camp portion, the rookie portion of training camp. So the rookie camp schedule starts, as I mentioned, on September 11. It starts at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. The goalies will be on rink 2, and then there will be skills. That's at 10:30 again. And at 10:45, it's going to be a skills, kind of more of a run through on rink 2, and then a full on practice from 11 to 11:30, and then 11:30 to 12 will be the practice on rink 1, and then we as media will have a chance to speak. So all of this is happening at Kraken Community Iceplex. There are ways for you as fans to attend for free. There are also other events for season ticket holders, etc. happening. This day 2 is more or less the same with media availability again following the 11:30 to 12 window. So those things are the same. Now things change up on Saturday, which is September 13th, because that is the prospect showcase that's happening at Angel of the Winds Arena in Everett. And so there will be a 10:30 to 11:30 practice for the non-game players. And so we are going to probably see the roster split-ish, but we'll see. And so those players who are not skating in the first exhibition, rookie exhibition, will be on the ice on Saturday. The game at Everett and Angel of the Winds Arena, 6 p.m., and they're taking on the Vancouver Canucks prospects. So that's been billed. We talked about that when it was announced. And then September 14th, and I will be in town by the 13th. I will not be going to Everett, but I will be at the Prospects Showcase on Sunday, and things start a little earlier, 9:30 to 10:30 for the non-game players. So probably the players that played in Everett will be skating Saturday morning, and then 4 p.m. and the showcase game is at Kraken Community Iceplex. So that's a little bit different. And then they have Monday off. Tuesday is for the rookie portion of camp. That will be a 10:30 goalie ice, 11 to 11:30 a practice, and then second practice at 11:30 to 12. And so this is also the day where, and not the only day, but this is the last day, the 16th, before full-on training camp starts with kind of a media day. And so the whole team will be together for sure on the 17th. And then we will talk about what the rest of preseason and training camp looks like. I'll also talk a little bit about what I want to see at training camp. And so we'll get into all of that. But let's talk first about who is the full roster, who are some players that we'll be meeting for the first time, will there be some competition, etc. We'll talk about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is upon us, basically, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now, people love using FanDuel because it can fit however you like to bet. player props, futures bets, same game parlays, and you can even jump in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting fanduel.com to get started. That's fanduel.com to place your first $5 bet. And if you win, you get $300 in bonus bets. As always, gamble responsibly. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination, your first listen of the day, your midday listen, your late night listen. I was just watching some action in Climate Pledge Arena. Unfortunately, the Seattle Storm couldn't get it done against the New York Liberty. I have difficulty when New York plays Seattle in the WNBA. Really needed that win for Seattle, but kind of so did New York. And we've talked about that on my Black Rosie Media podcasts. But Climate Pledge Arena soon will be all about hockey, whether that's the Seattle Kraken, of course, or the new PWHL Seattle team. If you haven't checked out the Women's Hockey Report on the Locked On NHL channel, we post episodes every Saturday. And we had a special guest from Seattle that has a really interesting origin story when it comes to hockey. And yes, it does involve the Seattle Kraken. That's actually a 2-part episode. We talked so much about Seattle. I mean, surprise, there was 2 of us who love Seattle on the pod. So, of course, we dominated the conversation, but you can check out both of those. The first one will be available probably right at the time this one is as well, overnight for the East Coasters. But the second part will drop around 9 a.m. Pacific time, which is noon Eastern time. So go check that out. All right, the full camp roster for the Seattle Kraken. Really no surprises. I don't think anyone is going to be shocked to see, who is invited to camp. Some of the bigger, or I guess the question marks when it comes to that are more so with who's on the rookie roster, not as much when it comes to the full roster, but we still have it here for you. And of course, we're going to look it over. We're going to talk about it. So your full camp roster, of course, Maddie B is a player that, I'm going to have some bold predictions for you, but Maddie B is a player. Year of Veneers is 2025. That's what Jessica Campbell and I have talked about a few times. I've mentioned it on the show. So I'm looking for Maddie Veneers to have a big year. I'm also very curious to see how Jordan Eberle will come back after just a really tough injury, a really tough recovery that apparently he really bossed through. So I'd love to see our captain back on the ice playing well. I mean, other players that stand out to me are, of course, some of the new guys. Frederick Gaudreau, who came over from Minnesota. You have Mason Marchment. A lot of people, when they're talking about the Kraken on a national level, or people kind of popping in to talk about the Kraken, they talk about Mason Marchment. That's who everyone, when I go on shows, they want to know about Mason Marchment. We understand that the goal there is for him to be a player that will give us net front presence, give us a little more sandpaper. And I'm okay with that. So that's someone that I'll be looking out for. Cabo Caco, someone that we talked about, was an RFA, took a little while, but he did get a deal done with the Seattle Kraken. I want to see him step up and help to facilitate for Maddie Beniers so that we can get a little bit more goal scoring from Maddie Beniers this year. And I think he can do it. We saw that in pockets last year because of the trade that sent Capo Caco to us. Will Borgen, of course, went to the New York Rangers. So I'm curious to see what will happen there. Ian McKinnon is a camp invite, has been, a part of the Coachella Valley AHL team. So I'm curious to see, if he's a player that can figure out, where to be an impact player. I'm thinking more so probably for our AHL Coachella Valley team, but someone that I think will be interesting to check out here. Other players that we're looking at, or that I'm looking at, I mentioned Newman already. I mentioned O'Brien. Again, Tucker Robertson no longer in the pipeline. I mentioned Shala. Jaden Schwartz is always a player I love to watch. I think he is the OG when it comes to sandpaper, and he's kind of underrated for what he's able to do for the Kraken at that level. So it'll be good to see him come through. Ellie Tolvanen, I'd love to see have a busted out breakout year. I would love to see it 100%. So when it comes to before we move on to D, I think everyone is curious what kind of season Shane Wright is going to have. I personally am interested to see if he's put on any more weight. He definitely was a stronger, more defined version of Shane Wright last year. I think Matty Beniers has had a little more trouble putting on weight, but Shane definitely did that from coming into camp last year, and so I'll be interested to see if he's able to do that even to an even further extent. I think that would really benefit him and what the Kraken likely could use him to do. So when it comes to our defensemen, Riker Evans, I think, is a big question mark for me. I wasn't really I wish the momentum would have been different to end the season for Riker. That wasn't really the case. So, I'm curious to see how he comes in. Vince Dunn has been injured for several training camps now and has even missed some time in the early season. So I hope we get a healthy Vince Dunn. I'd love to see it. I think other players on here, Ty Nelson, scrappy guy. I want to see what the future holds for him. I think it's still AHL, but I think he's always a fun guy to watch. I think Gustav Olofsson is a player people are curious to see if he can spend some time in the NHL this upcoming season. Ottavainen probably as well. And then when it comes to goaltending, we talked about Coco, we talked about Osman. I have a special place in my heart for Jack LaFontaine. I love that he's in the pipeline. I talked to him. I talked to our guy Tato Had from the Kansas City Mavericks a lot. Don't know that we'll see much movement from him between the ECHL and then going to the AHL, but you never know with injuries, especially at the goaltending position, but I'm not anticipating that. And then there's Matt Murray, of course, who is someone that the organization brings in to and forward thinking, knowing that Philip Grubauer for sure is going to be an Olympian, and Joey Decord at least has been invited to USA hockey camp. I think he's probably a long shot, but you never know. You never know. So that's the roster more or less, but I want to hear from you. Who are the players that you are excited to see as we get ready for training camp? So we've been over the rookie part of the roster. We've gone over of course, the veterans that are coming back. Let me know. Do you have some early predictions? What do you think about the year of Beniers? I still believe in Matty B. I still believe in Matty Beniers. I want Vince Dunn to have a good season. So there are a handful of people that I really think we need to see move the needle. And, I'm curious to see how many of these rookies are going to make it. But I think that we've heard Ron Francis say this for years, right? He's always talking about we're going to give X insert, player's name every opportunity to make the team out of camp. I have said this before under Dave Haxtell. I didn't think that we had enough opening of the lungs when it came to training camp. Apparently, there was a lot of juice under Disco Dan Bilesma, whether that was a good or bad thing. I mean, he's not with the organization anymore, but I liked that that's how he started things out. I don't know. I think you need some energy, you need some juice, some jam, some moxie coming into training camp, and I liked that he was willing to push the guys pretty hard. So I'm curious to see what Lane Lambert is going to bring. Is this going to be more of really talking through things on the ice? I mean, I don't know that I see the point in that. I think you need to know what the baseline fitness level is in a training camp. Yes, these are pro athletes, and you're going to be playing exhibition games in a handful of days into camp. I think you need to make sure that the guys open the lungs. But, I've been saying that for years. But coming up next, we will go over the remainder of the schedule. through the training camp, which of course will include the preseason on the back end. That's coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. It is almost that time, Seattle hockey fans. By the time you're watching this, I'll basically be a week away from touching down in Seattle for a very extended trip, as usual, for preseason, for training camp. Won't make it for all of rookie camp, but again, Joe and I have some really cool things planned. We're super excited for our content calendar and to be boots on the ground and get you some really fun stuff. Next week, you can expect that, of course, we'll be talking about rookie camp and we have some fun things that we'll be doing on social media. So if you're not already, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Kraken on YouTube. That's the number one way. All of our content goes on YouTube first, before audio, before anything else. So you always want to go to YouTube first. The next thing that I would highly recommend that you do is that you follow us on TikTok. And, we might have some other social media platforms that we're going to upstart again, but TikTok for sure right now. And you'll see some of the content that we have and you can follow along with the different days of rookie camp, training camp, and then of course the preseason, etc. So do all of that for sure, folks. All right, when we go to the rest of the week. So Tuesday, the teams are going to be divided as they usually are, and we're going to get a blue group, we're going to get a white group. Now, we don't have those differentiations just yet. I imagine they're going to go through a few days of rookie camp, and then we'll know who is split into what group. And once we know that, we'll share that with you. But the blue group will hit the ice for the morning session, which is at 8:55 a.m. Goalies on the ice. The white group on Tuesday, September 18th, hits the ice at 11:10. So right now, maybe, or I should say, when we know what the groups are and you have your fave that you want to catch on the ice, we'll break all of that down for you. And then the two groups will alternate. So the white group will be the early group on Friday, September 19th, again, starting at 8:55 with goalie ice. And then 11:10 is the start for the blue group at on Friday, September 19th. And same thing for Saturday. They just invert that. Now, Sunday, there'll be a morning skate at 9:30. That's Sunday, September 21st. And then there's a preseason game versus the Vancouver Canucks at Climate Pledge Arena. So we will have coverage for you for that. There still will be sessions at Kraken Community Iceplex for anyone that is not going to the game or doesn't want to go downtown to CPA. You can stay over by Northgate and catch the blue group at 10:45, the white group also at 10:45, and they're going to have a scrimmage. These are for the players who are not competing in the preseason game, of course, against the Vancouver Canucks. The teams will have off on the 22nd, and that is because they will have a morning skate at Climate Pledge Arena, but then they will travel to Scotiabank Saddledome to take on the Calgary Flames. So that's an away game for the preseason. There will still be blue and white groups, and they'll have a scrimmage, and we'll talk about that for people staying in the area. And the team will come back, have a morning skate 10:15 on Wednesday, September 24th, before they then head out to play Edmonton at Rogers Place for the preseason game. And again, we'll walk through this all over again, but just letting you know that the next few days where there is a game. So we talked about the one on the 24th away. They will also play on Friday, September 26th at Rogers Arena versus the Vancouver Canucks. Then they come back to Climate Pledge Arena on September 29th. They take on the Flames. And on Wednesday, October 1st, they have a preseason game against the Edmonton Oilers. Morning skate will be at Climate Pledge Arena instead of at Kraken Community Iceplex. So that's just a little change there. And again, once we have more things in the schedule, we will let you know. Season ticket holders, you should have gotten a similar email with some of this breakdown of when you can attend for free, mind you, at Kraken Community Iceplex. There's almost always giveaways, especially from Starbucks. If you ever need a reusable mug, come to a Kraken practice during preseason in particular. Well, that's usually when I'm at practice. But anyway, I think it's going to be a good time. As I've mentioned before, Joe and I are going to be boots on the ground. Joe and I will overlap from about the 17th to the 22nd, maybe a little bit later than that. I'll update you as our schedule gets finalized. But please, please, please come and say hello. I love seeing the fans. And another great way to engage with the show is to make sure you subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and do it. Locked On Kraken on YouTube. It's free. You can also set the notifications so you know when we post videos. There are times where we post a little later in the night, and that's mostly when I have some WNBA obligations that overlap, such as tonight, where I was watching the New York Liberty take on the Seattle Storm. Unfortunately, the Storm lost that game. They have one more home game left, and they're still looking to clinch a spot, so they've got to win out there. But you want to stay tuned. We're going to do our Where Are They Now for the inaugural season and the inaugural roster of the Seattle Kraken, which means if you're like me and one of your favorite ever Seattle Kraken players is one Ryan Donato, then you're going to want to tune in. We're going to have a good time talking about that. And then, of course, we're going to do it for season 2 as well. I mean, be prepared when I do the Where Are They Now. It's probably just me talking about Martin Jones. That's a problem. And Ryan Donato, because I get to talk about him again there too. Morgan Geeky, Susie. We got some guys that we can talk about. So that's what the next few episodes, the next few weeks are going to look like. Once I get to Seattle, and especially when Joe and I are there together, we'll definitely have content that's more based on what happened that day, giving you updates there. But leading up to training camp, we want to set the tone. This is season 5 for the Seattle Kraken. Season freaking 5. So on the one hand, that does mean that we can look back into our history up until this season and maybe reflect on what has gone well, what we want to see more of. But we also are hoping that this is the mark of a new era for real. And those very sick blackout uniforms, if that's indicative of how the season is going to go, I'm here for it. But there's still a lot of work that this organization has to do in good faith, not just to their fans, but maybe also to the locker room and to the players. So I'm very curious to see what the vibes are and how they're maintained or how they grow over time while I'm in Seattle. If you have questions or things that you'd love for us to address, especially while we're in Seattle, please let us know. You can email us at Locked On Kraken. Make sure, again, you're subscribed on YouTube, and you can just leave a comment on any of the videos. I read all of the comments, as I'm sure especially the everydayers know, because I will also respond to some of them. And then you can also follow us on TikTok. That's another way to engage with us. And if you have a question or something, let us know. A reminder to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and hold fast, stay true. And loud and proud we say, with real, actual exhibition games on the line very soon, let's go Kraken. I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.